Kizamde! Hop on the beat!
Welcome back to another JoJo chapter review. This time we'll be taking a look at chapter 20 of the JoJoLands titled Glory Days Part 2. In the last chapter, we learned about the background of the Howler Corporation, while the Howler agents Bobby Jean and Lulu started their attack on Jodio's gang in the hospital. This month, we get right back to Jodio being cornered by Bobby Jean in the restroom as Bag's Groove attacks him from the inside. He shoots into the stalls to narrow down Jodio's location, while Jodio deflects the bullets with November Rain, bricking one of the toilets and sending water flying everywhere. Bobby Jean remembers that Jodio's group has the lava rock and asks to make a deal with him to give it up. However, once he finally corners Jodio, one of the water droplets from the ceiling falls onto his head, piercing through with November Rain's ability and seemingly killing him. Lulu appears and reacts with horror, withdrawing her stand from Jodio and the others. He considers crushing her stand, but says that instead, once she's done crying, she'll be leaving the hospital with them. Meanwhile, Usagi returns to normal as well in the MRI machine. Paco is also shown to have recovered, having used his muscles to mitigate the damage and being patched up by the hospital employees. He meets back up with Jodio and Dragona, who tell him that Howler knows who they are and that they'll leave once Usagi fixes the security camera footage. Jodio finds a bag that was left with Paco, which actually turns out to have belonged to the bank employee Mac, who was shot a couple chapters ago while holding documents relating to the land transfer. Jodio recognizes that this coincidence happened thanks to the lava rock's influence. We also see that the congressman's daughter is recovered after Bag's Groove's attack ended. Congressman White struggles to remember whether he signed the approval of the land seizure, which if you remember was actually done by Jodio and the gang when they first arrived in the hospital. He settles on having approved it and says he wants to investigate Howler's actions. Jodio discovers from the documents that Howler had put up the land as collateral for a loan of $38 billion from the bank, which the bank tried to collect before Howler's assets could be frozen. He decides that the lava rock is telling them to use the documents to collect the debt. He says that they should meet up back at Meryl May's place and that they should bring Mac with them to use him to collect the debt. The chapter ends with Paco and Dragona questioning if Mac is even alive. This was another very good chapter. After the month break in October, it was great seeing Part 9 return, and this conclusion to the fight with Bobby Jean was just amazing. Like the last chapter, it was an awesome use of stand abilities, with the fight coming to a shocking and brutal end. I questioned before what might end up happening to Lulu after this fight, and the implication seems to be that she's going to be taken by the protagonists. Where this'll go is unknown, but I could see that leading to a future fight with her, and even possibly her joining their side down the line. Lulu is a really interesting character so far, so I'm looking forward to how that'll go. We also saw the end of Bobby Jean here, and while he did go out in an abrupt way, I think it was fitting with the fast-paced nature of the fight and his ability. The most interesting thing to happen here, though, is the end of the chapter, where we see Jodio fully embrace the power of the lava rock and moving forward with a whole new plan to secure the debt. We got to see some more interesting stuff from the mechanism of the lava rock as well. I've pointed out before the crazy ways the rock has been affecting reality before. One easy example here is seeing the bag of documents end up in the gang's possession, but the one I find more interesting is what happens with Congressman White, since he seems unable to remember whether he approved the land seizure. We heard before that the mechanism of the lava rock works through people's emotions and connections. So it's possible that the wealth transfer not only put Sophie close to death, but also used the grief the congressman experienced from that to allow the forgery to get by unchecked. I'm also starting to notice a bit of a pattern with the part, which seems to be giving us a series of different jobs for the gang to do. First going after the diamond, then using the lava rock at the land registry, and now the plan to collect the debt. I also wonder what kind of role Mac is meant to play going forward, and I'm picturing the next arc being a kind of Weekend at Bernie's scenario where the gang uses the injured Mac to collect the debt somehow. If they go that route, that sounds like a hilarious premise for a JoJo arc, so I really want to see what they do there. In other news, the JoJoLands will be featured on the cover of next month's Ultra Jump, and we'll also be seeing the release of the 5th volume of Part 9. We also have word that the Jodio Super Action statue is in the works, which I absolutely plan on buying. With the hiatus last month, we've had a bit of a break with JoJo, but we've now gotten news that December is going to be another really big month for the series. We've finally gotten the reveal for the cover of the 4th issue of the JoJo magazine, which will be featuring La Squadra from Part 5. Most of these characters haven't been drawn by Araki since Part 5 itself, so it's amazing to be able to see them again in the modern art style. We even get to see Sorbet and Gelato featured here. This cover actually mirrors the upcoming Part 9 Volume 5 cover, which will be releasing on the same day. One cute detail is that across the two illustrations, Jodio's gang is giving a thumbs up while the members of La Squadra are giving a thumbs down. The magazine is releasing on December 18th and will be 304 pages long, making it the longest issue of the magazine to date. For the content we know about, first we're getting a 65-page feature on La Squadra, which includes responses to a fan survey they put out about them recently. This is a really good chance for us to learn more about them, and if we're having some wishful thinking, we could even get info about sorbet and gelato as well. Next is a short story titled My Prized Hook and Line, which will be about prosciutto and pesci. It's written by Yoshihito Okita, author of the manga Jisatsu Hojo. He said that he's been inspired by JoJo in the past, so I'm looking forward to seeing how this story turns out. Another big part of the magazine is a 78-page feature on the women of the JoJo series. We don't know anything else about that though. We'll also be seeing another continuation of Hirohiko Araki's Manga Techniques, which is Araki's book about writing manga, which just recently got a sequel about how he writes villains. Alongside that is an interview with the South Korean actress Ha Yeon-soo. She hasn't had any official involvement in the series until now, but has said in the past that she learned Japanese through reading JoJo and that her favorite character is Jolene. The last issue had a similar interview with the actress Eliza Ikeda, who also wasn't involved with the series, but which turned out to be a very interesting read, so I'm looking forward to this new one too. The biggest new announcement though is the 2 new manga chapters from this issue. First is a follow-up to Cool Shock Old BT. If you aren't familiar, Cool Shock BT was Araki's first serialized manga from before JoJo, and it received a spin-off sequel titled Old BT written by Nisio Isin and illustrated by Posuka Demizu. That later had its second chapter printed in the 3rd JoJo magazine, which seemingly wrapped up the story. This time around, the new chapter is titled Cool Shock Young BT, The Smoker Under Arms Incident, so it seems like this time we'll be focusing on BT as a young man. The title is referencing Poker Under Arms, Araki's first ever published manga, so it seems like the chapter will be loosely adapting that story, like they had done with another Araki one-shot, the sci-fi story Say Hi to Virginia. I really loved the way Isin had written BT in those 2 chapters, so I'm definitely looking forward to this next one. The other chapter is a brand new manga one-shot starring Hazamada from Part 4, titled Toshikazu Hazamada's Questionable Adventure. It's written by Kyosuke Usuta, who I'm not really familiar with, although he was one of the artists to submit an illustration for JoJo's 25th anniversary depicting all of the Jo-stars. This one is definitely interesting since Hazamada is such an odd character to be the star of a spin-off. So far we know nothing about this story, but I really want to see how it turns out, and I welcome any kind of new JoJo spin-off content. When the magazine releases next month, I'm planning to cover it in detail like I have with the other issues, along with 2 standalone reviews for the manga chapters. In the meantime, I'll also be working on some more videos now that JoJo is starting to be active again. We're very close to reaching 300,000 subscribers on the channel, and to celebrate, I'm working on a video just discussing and recommending some of the other series I'm interested in outside of JoJo. I actually had a lot to say about them, and I may even consider making videos on these other series in the future, so if that sounds interesting to you, make sure to check out that video once we hit the 300k milestone. In the meantime, if you want to keep up with new videos, make sure to subscribe and click the bell. You can also join the Hum and Beat Discord to get notified on new uploads and any important JoJo news. Finally, I'd appreciate if you help support the channel on Patreon or by becoming a YouTube member. By joining, you get your name featured at the end of the video, and you could submit viewer questions. I answer patron questions at the end of every major video, so if you're interested, I hope that you'll join and ask me some. On Patreon, you could submit them in the community chat, and on YouTube in the members-only community post. The amount of questions I have is pretty limited, so if you're a supporter, feel free to ask as many as you want since they're all very likely to be featured. Thank you for watching. This is the part of the video where I thank my $5 and up patrons and members. Thank you to Sloth Dog, Doorbell, Crayon, Rigovids, Zucato, Pumpkin Doge, Marrow, Gatling Grove, Sponge Cake, Cakext, Feliciano Rabaja, Rayana Meme, Christian McDonough, Emmanuel Etienne, Pulse Dog, Zach Greenfield, FIFO, Rob Goliath, Jacob Smith, Big T, C Manga, Minty, Gold, Red Hot Mayonnaise, Jolene, Monticelli, Zenkai, Royal Slush, Keenan, Perry, Noland, Miguel Antonio, John Braun, Cho Henshin, Saint Bobo, Max Verstappen, and Kira not Yoshikage.